Welcome to BW Business World. Today we have with us Dr. Vivek Mansingh. He's a general partner at Your Nest VC Fund, board member of TurboStart, Innovatia, Velocity Global. He is also a global leader, entrepreneur, and public speaker, and of course, the author of today's book, Achieving Meaningful Success. Welcome, Dr. Mansingh, to our platform.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Before we begin, we must ask you the question that we have to ask everyone. This has been a crazy 2 years with the pandemic and the lockdowns. How has it been for you, both personally and professionally speaking?
Very interesting question. We had interesting times, but some positives. I mean, when the first wave came and the second wave came, it was very serious affair. So both personally and professionally, things were quite limited and serious, but that gave me, and travel stopped. Luckily, travel stopped. So all the meetings were on video and I was home, not traveling. That gave me time to introspect. And then I looked at my career, 35 years, and I looked at what legacy I want to leave. How can I be more helpful to people? And one thing I looked at my background was that I have been mentoring people throughout my career. Thousands of people I have mentored all over the world, not just in India. And I am a product of my mentors. So I thought that let me mentor 1 million. And that is where the concept came that I want to mentor 1 million young people in the next few years. Now, how do you mentor 1 million people? It's not easy. And that is the genesis of the book. And then I said, if I can write a book which acts as a mentor, then I can actually reach 1 million people. And so that was the genesis of the book. Along with that, how would people get their questions answered? Then I came up with the idea of launching the website along with the book, where people who have read the book can ask questions and all of their questions will be answered. So Mentor 1 Million is pure product of COVID period. My other professional activities continued during COVID, no problem. Personally, it was tough at times, but I mean, we rode over it. But I think the biggest positive is the book as an outcome and my initiative of Mentor 1 Million. One thing I should add before you ask the next question is that all the questions that will be answered on the website are free. There's no payment, anything required there. And also the book profits are being donated to an eye hospital in Chitrakoot. So no commercial benefit from either the book or the website.
May I just say that's very generous of you. I mean, we are very lucky to have, there have been many terrible things over the pandemic, but it has been a source of like retrospection and also like looking at actually what people need and what the world needs. So I think a lot of good lessons have come out of this pandemic, and a lot of good books, such as your own book, has come out of this pandemic. So I must ask, you title of your book, Achieving Meaningful Success. You really went on to the meaningful. Why would you choose that title? What was the message you were trying to give?
Yes, it's a very wonderful question, and both of you are young, so lesson for both of you as well. Lots of studies have been done where people have asked S&P 500, the top 500 companies in the United States, their CEOs at the end of their career, did you have a good life? And believe it or not, a huge number of them said that no, we didn't have a good life. And so that is sort of one conclusion people drew, was that professional success is not alone a good measure of success. Then there's Professor Clayton at Harvard. He did a wonderful study of his own MBA students. So after these are Harvard MBA graduates, the best of the best in the world, right? On the 5th alumni meet, everyone was great, happy, great spouses, great jobs, lots of money, cars, everything looked hunky-dory. 10th anniversary of that alumni, half the people did not show up. And he inquired, and a lot of them had started having problems. On 25th anniversary, actually only 3% of the people showed up. And a lot of people had marital problems, relationship problems, financial problems, and some had even gone to jail. So he wrote a book and he calls it that, you have to have other aspects in your life that balance your life. And so I came up with the concept of achieving meaningful success, which means have multidimensional and balanced life goals, which include your professional goals. You can put your profession there, recognition there, money there, material goal there. And equally important, or even more important, could be your well-being goals. That's where your relationship, health, fun, spirituality, if you care about, all those aspects come in. And when you combine them together and then you achieve in a balanced way, then you achieve meaningful success.
Right. Before I bring Urvi in, I would just wanted to make a comment. I'm surprised you said that Harvard were the best management students, since you're from Stanford. I got no bias here.
They are all top schools, so it's
They're
okay
all
to
top schools.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
And I
yes.
can't imagine that. Actually would like to hear more about how it might be difficult to go to management, especially if you're looking at MBA students, telling them that, oh, you should definitely value other aspects of your life and not just the professional part, given that there is such an ambitious number of students. But just my final question before handing it to my colleague. You said 1 million students you wanted to, or people you wanted to reach out to.
Yes.
I know this is a large number of people, but was there a particular target audience that you were kind of aiming this book towards while you were writing?
Yeah, excellent question again. The book is targeted to anyone after high school. So when you start sort of going to 9th grade, that is when you start choosing your subjects and you start making decisions about your life. So anyone after 15 years or so, it becomes relevant. Now, it doesn't stop there. 35, 45, 55, 65. I'm 65 years old and I'm still working on it. So the book is relevant to all. And that is why Narayan Murthy's comment after he read the book is that the book is relevant to everyone and anyone can pick some golden nuggets from the book at any age, in any profession. So book is for anyone above 15 years old.
And if they have any questions, they can come to your website.
Yes, after reading the book though.
Yeah, after reading the book.
Yeah, no, not before. So from the questions, I'll figure out whether they have read the book or not. I'll first point them back to the book. And if then they have a genuine question, then as a mentor, me or my mentees will come up and help them.
Thank you. Urvi, to you.
Thank you, Vasudha. So that was quite a positive and bright start to the conversation. So taking it ahead, I wanted to ask you, Dr. Mansingh, that how would you as an individual define success? As you mentioned, you're 65 years old now. I'm taking a guess you're working for over 30 plus years now. So how has the definition of success changed across these multiple decades? As we spoke about the example of Harvard students, a lot of them place success on the material aspect only. Was that the case with you when you just started out? And how has that changed now that you are mentoring younger people?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I have always been somewhat balanced, let me tell you, throughout my career, even at early stages. I never dropped the ball on relationship or other aspects, whether it's health or fun or other aspects of success. But I didn't have this very systematic approach at that time when I started my career. And I had a great career. I do not know if you read it or not, but I'm probably the only one in the world who got a chance to work with David Packard, Bill Hewlett of HP, Steve Jobs, you all know, John Chambers and Michael Dell. So phenomenal people I got a chance to work with. But I never lost sight of the other goals as well. And so throughout my life, I have tried to balance my goals. But let me tell you, the most important sort of junction came to my life when we were happily living in US. I had founded a company. I was a CEO of the company, doing very well. Children, I had both two sons. They're going to schools very close by. Everything was great. But my mother developed some health issues and we took her there to the Stanford hospital, and she was diagnosed renal failure, and the doctor said she has 6 months to live. It did not take us any time. Literally on one evening, we decided to come back to India, leaving everything that was there, right? How can that happen? It was not just an accidental decision. It was because of the value system, because relationships for me were as important as professional success. And then relationship with parents was also very, very high on that. So when the need became clear that somebody has to take care of her, we literally came back to India over a weekend. Now, that is the power of having clarity of goals and your priorities. See, goals help you create very clear priorities. And if you know your priorities, you will be able to do the right thing. So that's how powerful these goals can be.
Right. So I wanted to ask you that we have always been preached about the importance of prioritizing and goal setting and the like. So what's new in this particular book? Why should the consumer or the reader pick up this edition over any other books on success that have been written before this?
Yeah, very good question. And there are lots of books on success. If you go to Amazon, you will find a lot of books on success. So multiple things. I will just point 3, 4. I can go on beyond that. But I think, let me tell you, number one, if you pick up a typical book on success, it generally focuses on professional success. So that defeats my point anyways, right at the beginning, because I'm talking about meaningful success and they are talking about success. That's point number one. Point number two, if you look at the biggest success evangelist, if you want to look at it, it is Robin Sharma from Canada and Anthony Robbins from USA and so on. These people only cater to professionals because they are trying to make money from this, which is fine, but then that is their focus, right? My focus is everyone. So it could be a carpenter, or it could be a landscaper, or it could be a driver's daughter. I don't care, right? It's for everyone. Number three, a lot of these books are written by trainers and academicians who have not been there, done that. And so the difference between my book and others is that everything in the book I'm covering is from my experience, what has worked for me or what has not worked for me. That is also covered. So these are the three things, but let me add one or two more. One of the chapters in the book you may have seen is called The 4 More Gods You Need. So these 4 gods are there to help you, but very few people take these 4 more gods. The other god, everyone goes for help, but the 4 gods, which are these 4 gods? These are inspirers, role models, mentors, of course, and books, right? Go to inspirers now. When I ask young people today, who is the person that inspires you? You know, they draw blank. Who's your role model? They draw blank. These are very important things. So of course, this is covered in the chapter, the value that these people bring. So I decided to add a chapter of the people who I admire and who inspire me. These are 11 most distinguished people from India. Mr. Ratan Tata, Mr. Narayan Murthy, Kiran Majumdar, Dr. Devi Shetty, Rahul Dravid, Prakash Padukone, and Sadhguru ji, and so on, right? This is unique to this book. There are books where interviews of people have been done, but then here, these are not generic interviews. These are interviews about the topics in the book. And the beautiful lesson there is that these people underline the message of the book. If these people can underline the message for the book and they have achieved this level of success, and you pay attention, most of these people have achieved meaningful success. They are not just professionally success. There are more richer people in the country. I'm not going to take the name, but they haven't achieved meaningful success. But whether it is Narayan Murthy or Dr. Devi Shetty, or these people are just amazing people. So they have underlined the message in the book. That's another unique feature of the book. Then what I have done is there are about 20 of my mentees who have been sort of contacted, and they have given their feedback on how the ideas covered in the book have helped them. These are men, women, young, old, student, CEOs, all profiles are there. So the idea is that the reader will connect with at least one or two of those. If you are a student, you will connect one or two of those. And then they are saying how these mentoring ideas have helped them. So hopefully you get inspired by the track record of the ideas covered in the book. And that is another unique thing in the book. Neither Anthony Robbins nor Robin Sharma have covered any of this. And they are way too focused on leadership only. Leadership, I have also covered, but leadership is one part of the game, not the only game in town.
Yes, that's true. The balancing act is something that we are not taught as a life skill in general.
That's
so
right.
It becomes very necessary to have the appropriate mentors early on in life. So since we're talking about the book and its contents, the book has 14 chapters. Now, I wanted to ask you, which is your favorite chapter out of these 14 and why?
So this is a very difficult question. This is like asking your children, who is your favorite child? Huh? So it's a bit unfair, but still let me take a stab at it. If I have to pick one chapter, it will be on, capturing your aspirations as a wheel of goals. Right. And I'll tell you why it is so important. And both of you will relate to that. So in one sentence, if I have to describe the book, it is define who you aspire to be. Define who you aspire to be and then become that person. Now, this is very loaded sentence. Most people, first of all, never define who they aspire to be. They don't know how to do that. It's not like they're stupid. They just don't know how to do it. And then the second part is become worthy of that aspiration. So now here are the challenges. Aspiration part, if you take, especially in India, this is a little better in international situations, but in India, people have grown up in very constrained environment and they can't think big. For various reasons, they apply constraints. How will this happen? Where I'll get this resource? How can I do this? How can I even think about it? So big aspirational thought process is very limited. Let me give you two examples. One, Dilip Kumar, who was actor, everyone knows, right? He was selling fruits in Bombay. He didn't aspire that I should have a largest fruit store in Bombay. He aspired to become a Bollywood actor and he did, right? Take Mahendra Singh Dhoni. He was a ticket collector in railways. He didn't aspire to become a station master. He aspired to play cricket for India and he did. So that is what you have to open to people, that look, this is how aspiration works. So many times I ask, and I have described in the book also, if I see people can't think big, then I say, okay, God is in front of you. He gives you 3 wishes. Ask. Now there is no constraint. God is there, but still people can't think big. So that's where a mentor comes in and says that, no, you can actually do bigger and better things. So aspiration is this part of problem. Then aspiring in a balanced way is another problem. If you aspire too much in the direction of money, for example, or material goals, and you don't live with values and those kind of things, then you go astray and do stupid things and end up in jail, like the Harvard case study. So I think 2 parts of aspiration: one, big aspiration, and second, balanced aspiration. Now come to the second part of the sentence. Define who you aspire to be and then become that person. Now, how do you become that person? And that is the part also covered in the book on becoming the best version of yourself. So I'll talk about it later, but hopefully this addresses this question at least.
Yes, most good things in life are simple, but they might not be easy, which is
Absolutely.
a quote I read somewhere and it has stayed with me because it was so relevant for most of us.
That's
So
right.
with that thought, I would like to bring back Vasudha into the conversation. Vasudha, over to you, please.
Thank you, Urvi. You've already kind of touched upon this on mentorship, but I actually want to get into that a little bit more. As someone who handles education, we are hearing so much more about mentors and mentorship playing a vital role in, self-development in this holistic education, which are obviously really big goals for all education institutes right now. But when we don't hear enough about like how do you kind of get into this mentorship process? How do you find the right mentor? What is the difference between your mentor and a role model? Is it the same thing? Is it different? And then the flip side, as a mentor, how do you go about finding a student who you can actually help along the right path, or like how do you go about that? So can you tell us a little bit about mentorship?
Excellent, excellent. So the chapter that I talked about earlier, the 4 more gods that you need, actually clarifies the difference between people who you get inspired from, people who are your role model, people who are your mentors, and people you can learn from, or books and so on. So people who inspire you are people who inspire you. You don't have to become like them, but something in their character or some part of their personality really inspires you, right? That is an inspirer. I think, for example, for me, Rahul Dravid is an inspirer. Narayan Murthy is an inspirer. I don't want to play cricket, but I'm still inspired by integrity of Rahul Dravid and so on. I can go on, but that is inspirer. Role model is the person you want to be like. When you grow up, you want to become that person. That is role model. Right? And then mentor is a person who generally is a knowledgeable and experienced person in the path that you are going to choose or planning to choose, and helps you show the light. So these are navigators who get you to your destination, but ideally they have been there, done that. So for example, if you want to learn tennis, you are not going to hire a cricket coach, right? Although that person knows the basics of sport, you will hire a tennis coach. So why? Because that person has played tennis. Similarly, here, the mentor that you want to hire. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, for example, you might want to start talking to some entrepreneurs who can become your mentors. Now, if you want to be a doctor, you might want to reach out to some doctors who can mentor you. If you want to play cricket, of course, just continue that way. Now, as a first step, you are not going to be able to get to your mentor of choice. There are limited mentors, and that is the biggest problem that people face. And that is why the book will, at least the book is available. You can go and read it. You can read it 10 times if you want, and it will take you to the next level and the next level and the next level. Now, the second part of your question, why would mentor sort of take a mentee? There's so many people write to me, there's limited time and so on. How would you do that? But if you have read the book and if you have taken the first 3 steps, your path becomes easier. Then you go to a mentor and then say that I have done this, I read this book and I have taken these 3 steps. Now I need help for 4th and 5th step. The chances are very high that a mentor will help you.
Right. The mentee needs to inspire the mentor as much as the mentor needs to inspire the mentee.
Well said. Right. Absolutely.
It's a symbiotic relationship. Thank you for putting that in. Actually, there's so much, you kind of, it's a book, there's a lot in there and they all kind of go hand in hand. So I'm sorry if I'm jumping around a little bit.
That's
but,
fine.
This whole aspiration thing, it's so interesting. You're asking people to kind of like hone in on the aspiration, but that can be really difficult to do. Do you think that there is one way to find someone's aspiration? Is there a playbook to this?
Yeah, every person is different. That is the challenge here. So you can't sort of use cut and paste to all students, but the process is same. The process is, for example, for a student, let's take a case of a student who is, let's say, going to college or something like that, right? I would book actually tells you, select people who inspire you. Think about who can, at least you can find one person who inspires you. Then find a role model who you would be like. It could be uncle, aunt, your teacher, somebody who is your role model. You may not be able to meet your role model, but you may be able to read their books. You may be able to read their or listen to their talks and so on. That starts giving you direction. And then you come back and say, okay, what do I have? What are my strengths? And then how do I become that person? Let me share one thing that I say all the time. Future should not be decided by extrapolation of your past. It should be decided by aspirations of the future. The problem is we can't give up our past. I have 3 years experience in this. I have 5 years experience in this. Now I'm ready to become a manager. That is just extrapolation of the past. Why not think that I want to create a $50 million or $100 million company? Now, entrepreneurs do that all the time. So it's not like impossible to find people. Every day I meet young entrepreneurs who want to create a large company, and they are very aspirational. So it is one big difference between entrepreneurs and other people is entrepreneurs have role models. I want to be like this. I want to be like that. I want to create a Google. I want to create a this company, that company. They have much more direction than in other cases. Another example I'll give you, which will help you understand. Let's say you want to say, I want to be CEO of this company, right? Now, somebody is already CEO of that company. If you acquire the experience and skill of that person, would you not become the CEO of that company? You will. So that is what you need to do. And that is how you need to take things forward. There's no cut and paste, Vasudha, that you can apply.
That's not the answer I wanted to hear, but it is a good answer. So I got it. But thank you so much for sharing that.
Dr. Mansingh, my 2 colleagues were among my brightest colleagues editorially.
Both, I can see that.
Urvi and Vasudha have joined. And I read your book, and I'm actually carrying a copy of the book with me. So let me show the book to all our viewers and readers.
Let me do this as well. Yeah.
And now, one of the questions that I would like to ask you is, what is the impact you're looking on the readers? Who is it intended at? What is the impact? And how do you define meaningful success? Because everyone defines their success in a very personal way. And I think the last 2 decades have changed the meaning of success. And the last 2 years of COVID have also changed the meaning of success. So give us a sense of what are you trying to espouse?
So some of it is repetitive a little bit because these questions have been asked before, but I'll go ahead and answer it again. Is that okay, Vasudha and Urvi? All right. Okay. So I think what is success, in my opinion, it's a meaningful success that I want people to think about. And meaningful success to me is about multidimensional balanced goals that you achieve throughout your life, which take care of your professional goals, your recognition goals, your material goals, but also take care of your health related goals, your spiritual goals, your relationship related goals, your giving back roles, etc., etc. So that's why I have come up with the term called wheel of goals. And these wheels contain all aspects of these goals. Now, you asked a very interesting question. Who decides that? I'm not prescribing anyone what you do. You decide what you do. You may want to pick 3 goals. You may want to pick 5 goals. Actually, I tell people that if you are not familiar with this process, pick 5 goals, 3 goals, whatever you are comfortable with, but slowly expand. Make sure over a lifetime, you cover all goals that you care about. Because the regret that I have described earlier, Professor Clayton's work in Harvard University, for example, has come from people who have pursued the path of single dimensional success.
Now, let me also ask you, you've been a multifaceted person, an author now, an investor, an entrepreneur. You have patents to your credit. You worked in global markets. Now, what is your commentary on the valuation of companies in India? It's not related to your book, but I can't let you go without asking that question. Again, there are 2 views on that there is a scarcity premium, there is a FOMO factor, and also there is genuine merit and value. But valuations may be out of the whack. So what is your view? You having lived and worked in the US and now having been in India for many years.
So it is out of the book. So I'll answer it quickly and would like to go back to the book, Mr. Batra. But here is your answer. Beauty is in the eyes of beholder, right? So similarly here, valuation is about potential of the company. And potential is all, in the minds of people. If you are able to see that potential, that is why you value certain companies at such high premium. There is no answer to it. Now, if you are asking general question on India, I think, yes, valuation is getting ahead of itself, not only just for startup companies, but even in public markets, you can argue that valuation is getting ahead of itself. So these are cycles, they come and go. I have seen many such cycles in Silicon Valley. I have seen some cycles in India. It will come and go. I don't think it should bother entrepreneurs. I think entrepreneurs should actually focus on creating value. And that is the key. Rest of the things will go up and down and take care of itself themselves in over a period of time.
Question before I hand it back to Vasudha and Urvi. How you say lessons at work, get a mentor. How important it is for people like you and me to get reverse mentoring from people like Vasudha and Urvi, while we need, they need to get mentors. But do you believe in the process of reverse mentoring?
Absolutely. You asked a very good question. I have covered it in the book as well. And so, yes, reverse mentoring is very important. My reverse mentors are identified in the book. Two of my sons are the best reverse mentors of mine because I have been mentoring them for a long period of time. Now it's their time to give me back some of those things. But also otherwise, even as head of Cisco and Dell, I was very open to having conversation with young millennials or other young people and learn from them, because we need to, for example, for professional career, you need to know where things are going, not the past aspect of it. And for that, you need reverse mentoring. You also need to understand their thinking process to be able to mentor them or influence them. And that is why you need reverse mentoring. So reverse mentoring is extremely important, and one should do that as much as possible.
Though I said last, but you've done it all. You have two sons who are doing well. You've seen it all. You're incubating companies. You're working with young minds. You've been a CEO. Your patents, as I said. Is there a bucket list that Dr. Vivek Mansingh has, which needs to be fulfilled? What needs to be done more by you?
Yes, very good question. And that is also covered in the book, by the way. So there are a bunch of things. At the age 65, I gave myself a bunch of goals. And these are following. Get ready for some aspiration like Vasudha and Urvi were talking about earlier. So I said, number one goal, I want to create 3 to 5 unicorns from India in technology and product space, so that the perception that India can only create copycats or India cannot create a product company or deep tech company can change. So that is my first goal. If I create 5 unicorns, Anurag, that I would impact India's GDP by 0.1%. Is that aspirational enough? I think it is.
Absolutely.
That will also create 50,000 jobs. Is that aspirational enough? Absolutely, yes. My third goal was to mentor 1 million. And I have described this earlier before you joined in, that the book Genesis is, first I decided that I want to mentor 1 million people. But how do you mentor 1 million people? Through a book and a website. And that is my goal number 3. Goal number 4 is, this year during COVID, I built an eye hospital for the poor in the city I come from. So I'm a big believer that you should trace your steps back when the time of giving back comes. And wherever you have gained anything, you sort of give back. So I come from a very small city called Fatehpur in UP, and I'm a product of government intermediate college there. And so I have built a hospital, an ICU, a maternity ward, an eye hospital I built during COVID. And I'll keep going and building more and more of these things. And I can go on, but I think these are 4 aspirational goals in front of me.
Back to you, Urvi and Vasudha.
Thank you, Dr. Batra. So these are quite inspirational for people like us who are just starting out on life, so to say. So with that, let's just get back to the book. And I would like to ask you about chapter 3. It says that passion is the miracle ingredient. So yes, I will agree with that. But having said that, a lot of us are caught in the rut of laziness, or we are caught in the rut of procrastination, or we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So is there any formula for igniting the inner passion? How does one trace it?
So that is a very, very good question. And so a couple of points before I answer that question. I have worked with very, very successful people throughout my career all over the world. And every successful person, irrespective of the field, has one thing in common, and that is passion. They are very passionate about what they do, whether it's a lawyer or a doctor. Dr. Devi Shetty, for example, I've interviewed, or Narayan Murthy or Rahul Dravid. These people are very passionate. Now, you can't be passionate without having any goals. You have to be passionate about something. So I think the first step comes is create the goals that actually excite you. So for example, when I create at 65, when I said, okay, what am I going to do now? And most people play bridge and sort of go to clubs and hang out there. I said, that's not exciting to me. And I created goals that gave me, something to get up excited in the morning. So you have to create aspirational goals. That's where also a mentor's role comes in, that they assess you. But if you don't have mentor, then the book will be your mentor. Assess yourself and see there is a diagram in the book that you may have seen, which is 4 circles that are intersecting each other. One circle is about what you are good at. Other circle is about what you like. Third circle is about what world values, and fourth circle is about what other goals you want to achieve. And then if you do the intersection, you will achieve meaningful success because you have balanced everything right. So now create a goal that excites you. I cannot imagine a person who would not get excited about a goal. The problem is they will be excited about the goal. They don't believe they can actually achieve it. So they want to be. For example, you are in this business world. What about having my own magazine, which will be like a business world 10 years from now? Now, how can that not be exciting? Right? So creating goals that are exciting. Now then, once you create the goal, aspirational goal, passion comes and plays the role. And here is how passion works. I've described it in the book. Passion, why I call it miracle ingredient, is because here is how passion works. So human brain has 2 sides. One is logical side and one is emotional side. Logical side is what we use most of the time because all our education system is based on logic. The other side, which actually is more powerful, is not utilized by most people. And I can tell you why that side is more powerful than the logical side, because let me give you an example. Have you cried in a movie? Not because movie is bad, but because you got engaged with the movie, right? So what is happening here? You know this is not happening. This is fiction. Movie will be over in 10 minutes, but you're still crying, right? Because the emotional part of the brain has taken over. Logical part cannot console it. And so this is very powerful part. Now, how do you make use of this part of the brain is through emotion, not logic. So it doesn't understand logic. And that emotion is passion. So passionate people, what they do is they send the signal to the other side of the brain also that I really, really, really want this. And slowly the passion starts this whole brain working. And when that starts, then we call it Aham Brahmasmi. You have become part of universe. Or Sari Kainat makes it happen for you. You will achieve unimaginable things. Let's say you wanted to meet Mr. Murthy desperately. He will come and sit next to you in a plane ride. Now that is not an accident. This is what universe is helping you with. So passion does an amazing thing. But before passion comes, you can't be passionate about nothing. You have to pick the goals that excite you. And I have not met a person who cannot be excited about some goals when mentored.
Yes, goal setting and following your passion and your heart, as we call it, is a symbiotic relationship. And they, as you mentioned about the Venn diagram earlier, which of course reminded me of my 11th grade back in school. But
Yes.
having said that, yes, I completely agree with you that goal setting and passion and working towards it. It's all one and the same thing. We can say they're two sides of the same coin. One kind can't exist without the other. So moving ahead, I wanted to ask you about another chapter in the book, which is chapter 6. The heading is Leadership Becoming 20 Feet Tall. Now, when we look at the title of the very chapter, it sounds like a leader is an imposing figure, not somebody who leads from the front, but someone who rides from the back. So having said that, what is your idea of leadership in this book?
So leaders are many types, and ideal leader is who can play multiple roles, sometimes from the front, sometimes from the back, whatever the situation demands, right? And leadership quality is absolutely essential for everyone, not just leaders. So a lot of young people say, I'm not a manager yet, so I don't need leadership skills. That is not true. Everyone needs leadership skill. And if you have those skills, so what are those, by the way, 4 or 5 things that leaders do, which are different? One, they have big vision. So again, goes back to having big aspirations. So Mahatma Gandhi, for example, resource 300 million hungry people, objective, independent India, result achieved, right? That's leadership. And many examples like that. So leaders have big vision. They are able to win trust of people. They are generally liked by people. They have the skill set to achieve whatever their objective is, and they work towards that, and they ultimately get the result. So this skill set is important for everyone. Now, my message to people who have not yet reached the level of leadership role is that lead projects at least. Come up, in your case, for example, come up with idea of an article or something that nobody is thinking about, and say, I want to do this, and lead that. And that is how you slowly develop leadership skills. So being 20 feet tall means that other people have to lift you on their shoulders. Why would somebody pick you and put you on their shoulder? That is because they believe in your vision, they believe in your cause, and they trust you, and they will pick you and put on their shoulder. That is what leadership is all about. But your point is still well taken. Leaders are of all kinds. Some people from back end can lead, and some people have to lead from front, depending on the situation and work they do.
Yes, of course, leadership and mentors, we have all kinds. And in fact, we need all kinds in this world. It's not just one size fit all. So with that, I would like to bring Vasudha back into the conversation. Over to you, Vasudha.
Thank you, Urvi. I mean, there's quite a lot to unpack there. I'm glad you mentioned your little Venn diagram because I actually really like that there were a lot of these small illustrations between the chapters that kind of remind you of the New Yorker style illustrations. Yes. And there were very nice little breaks in between. That kind of, and there's also like the book is also written in many different ways. You have your, points, you have your paragraphs, you have your stories, you have a lot of quotations. There's a lot a reader can take out of it. And right before this, you're talking about, how passion is an emotional thing. And I think a lot of this book is also, it's written in a very practical sense, but it's also very emotional, especially when you come to this part of relationships and, well-being and giving back. And could you kind of just walk us through that part of your book when you were talking about, maintaining relationships, and not just like with your family, but also with your colleagues, with the people you meet, and how that is important? What made you want to write about this? Was this something that you had always planned to put in the book, or, was it something that had to be in the book regardless of, how it was going to go out, or did it kind of come in later on?
No, it has been always part of my life. My wheel of goals always had at the top, it was relationship and professional success. They were pretty much at the top. So they have been always important to me, and they are generally important to everyone. When you ask people, they'll say, of course it is important to me. But now the question is, how far can you go for a relationship? Like I said, in my mother's case, she needed help, and I just gave up my career, my money aspirations, my family's comfort, and moved back from US to here. Now that can only happen when you value relationship more than the other things that I had to leave, right? Only then you can make it happen. So coming to relationship, I think this is the most important assets we all have. They can be, can bring you a lot of happiness. They can also bring you a lot of pain if not managed correctly. So relationship needs time, effort, and resource to manage. It is very, very important. Take the relationship with children. I will just give an example. And I always say, be what you want your children to be. Not a joke to do it. People do something else. They tell their children something else. Now children don't listen, they watch. So I always say, be what you want your children to be. Not easy to do. I have tried to model myself on that path. I gave up a lot of things that were needed to be done, but that's something that everyone should do. That brings relationship and values in children. I give example of the US air flight that landed on Manhattan, the river, and you all probably remember that scene where the flight is landing and the Rick, who was sitting in the front row, he has a TED talk, and he says that as the plane lined up with the river and as it was going down, the imagination we had was that the plane will break into pieces and this is the end of our life. And what was he thinking in those 4 or 5 minutes? Only about family. Why didn't I say this? Why didn't I do this? And so on. So I think relationships are very important, but what happens intentionally, nobody ignores anything, but we get busy with other things, and relationship rewards take time to show up, or may not show up at all, but that is what you need to do. And it takes time. And so people prioritize it less, and then they forget it to a certain extent, and then it can hurt them in a big way. Now that is relationship from family, like you said, but I think relationship with colleagues is very important. You need to earn their trust for leadership. Those relationships are important. You need to have network in your profession. Those relationships are important. So relationships are very important part of our life, both for professional success as well as for our well-being success. And that is why it has always been part of my life. And that is why it is part of the book also. And that is the point I was making earlier. If you read success books, in most cases, it is not part of that success book. Why is that?
That's why it's the meaningful success.
That's
right?
why it is meaningful.
Not just a one-dimensional success. And I'm glad you talked about the family. You know, my father just brought me some tea while we were having this conversation. So that was a very well-timed action right there. So I would like to go into, like, can you tell me a little bit about the illustrations? What made you want to put them in, and who made them?
Yeah, lovely question. So that was not the original idea. I'll be honest with you. When the book was taking final shape, I looked at it was in PDF format, so I didn't have a paper copy to flick through. But then I found that, text after text after text and so on. And then I said, what if I can have a sketch which actually depicts the key message of that chapter? And so then I tried a niece of mine who is in maybe 10th grade, and she tried, but didn't sort of work. And then we went to US for some business and so on. And then I tried in US to get some people who might be able to help me. But this book, as you know, is targeted towards Indians in India and abroad. It is not an international book because all the stories and all the models and the role models are Indians, and it was purposely done. So then I said, no, only an Indian can get that context, what I'm trying to see. And then I realized that I had an interior decorator who was a phenomenal person, and I reached out to him and he did those. So we brainstormed on the idea. So for example, like would we ask being 20 feet tall. And so we came up with the idea of that dahi handi thing that other people pick you on the shoulder and you become 20 feet tall. And frankly, that is leadership. So he did that, and I'm so happy I included it because every picture tells the story of the next chapter. It
definitely does. Yeah, it's a great segue into the chapters, and it's a good break. And it's definitely good for visual learners and people who like to read as well. There's something for everybody in here, definitely. I would like to pass the mic to Urvi, and then before asking my final questions.
Sure.
Thank you, Vasudha. So yes, I will agree with you on that. In fact, I was reading somewhere that we remember a lot more when we see as against to when we read.
That's right.
And when we hear something. So having said that, coming back to the chapters in the book,
Yes.
You have written extensively about mentorship, and the final chapters of your book highlight that specifically. So asking you about it, can you give us some examples from your life where a mentor has drastically impacted your career choices? And also you as a mentor, how have you guided your students? Can you give us some anecdotes?
Yes, yes. Let me give you two examples. I got a chance to work with Steve Jobs when he came back to Apple second time as a CEO. Apple was in dire straits; it was going bankrupt and so on, and they brought Steve back. And Steve had a tough job of revitalizing Apple, right? And so he looked at the products. There were 30 odd. I was part of that discussion. There were 30 products Apple was designing at that time, and he was not a PowerPoint person, so it was not a slide because PowerPoint is a Microsoft product. So he wanted it on the board, so they were on the board. He took the eraser and he erased 30. Other than 3 products, he erased every product of that. And the 3 products he's designed, he said, this is what will turn around Apple. One of that product was iMac. And we talked about, there's so many PCs already in the market. HP has it, Dell has it, this has this. So what can we design in iMac that can actually turn around the company? And that mentorship that he did at that time is that one of his lines I always repeat, that customers are not supposed to know what they need. Customers are not supposed to know what they need. Only Steve Jobs can come out of that, because most other people, including Jeff Bezos, says that talk to customers, figure out what they need and create that. But that's why Steve Jobs is Steve Jobs. He said customers are not supposed to know what they need. So he said, design a product that they would love to have. And the mentorship we got from him on product design and aspiring for a product that will succeed globally was phenomenal. And he gave me, I was part of the team, the challenge of that iMac, which was a monitor. I do not know if you guys know what iMac was, but it was the monitor and the computer in one. Okay, first product of its kind. Then he says there'll be no fan in that. Now, when the product is in 2 parts, one is the CPU, one is the monitor, even then you have fans. Now he's saying put all this together without fan. And again, his inspiration and his mentoring was amazing. To cut the story short, we designed it without the fan. Steve acknowledged that part when he launched the product. And right opposite to me, there is a poster of iMac where it is said that Vivek and team couldn't have done without you, signed Steve Jobs. So here is an example of a professional mentoring, if you want to talk about, which made a difference. And I learned a lot of other things from Steve Jobs as well. Coming to who I have mentored. So let me give you an example which will probably be a little different than a typical. Many professionals I have mentored, engineers, doctors, and entrepreneurs, that you probably can relate to it. But here is an example that you may find interesting. When I was building the house where I'm sitting right now for landscaping, one boy came with a laptop and said that, please give this landscaping contract to me. I said, how many people you work for? Nobody. How many landscaping projects have you done before? None. Okay, so why should I give it to you? And then he had brought the full plan for the house. Remember what I was telling earlier, that if you have taken 3 steps, the mentor will agree to help you with the 4th step. He had done all homework already. He had given me 2 or 3 ideas, and I was very impressed. So I said, not only you take this project, I'm going to mentor you and I'm going to help you. This guy is a landscaper. To cut the story short, this guy has now 2 BMWs. He's living in one of the most premium gated communities in Bangalore. He has 600 people working for him, and all through mentoring. And he himself comes and talks to me at certain frequency, brings his problems to me, and then I help him out. So here is an uneducated, if you want to call it, from engineering and medicine perspective. He was educated, but not this professional education wise. And here he built such a nice company purely through power of mentoring. And I can give you more examples of people, young people. Actually, they are in the book. If you go to the chapter 13, there are about 20 of my mentees, my sons included, who have said that mentoring has helped them to go to the colleges of their choice, to pick the career of their choice, etc., etc. So these are 2 aspects of mentoring I wanted to share.
Right. So when we talk about career mentorship in particular, a lot of youngsters are looking to become entrepreneurs these days, which has also been a running theme in our conversation, as also in the book. So I wanted to ask you, how has the idea of entrepreneurship and mentorship together changed across the last 2 decades, and especially the last 2.5 years, given that India is churning out unicorns? So what is the role a mentor is playing for the entrepreneur today?
Yeah, so this is a favorite question of mine, because that is all I do. I'm part of a venture capital fund, which obviously selects certain companies to fund. So I'm obviously part of that, what is called investment committee, which decides which companies to fund. But then my role becomes mentoring the companies. So in the chapter 13, you will read about Swati, who has been mentored by me, and you will also read about Sneh, who has founded a company called Miko. Both are being mentored by me. So can they make a difference? Read their view on that, and you will get to know that yes, they can. A mentor can make a massive difference to an entrepreneur, as well as to any other profession. But I think we are talking about entrepreneurs here. Both are great people. First of all, perfect mentee to be had, because they come prepared, they pay attention to what the mentor says, they are not afraid of being told that you are wrong, they are not afraid to listen to brutal truth. You are not good at it, you need to develop this skill, and so on. And both have done very well in their careers. Both are CXO level people, and hopefully both will become unicorn in the next, I would think, 3 to 5 years. So mentoring is extremely important for entrepreneurs. 2-3 places where it is critical. Number one, it shows the picture to founder what he or she may not want to see. Entrepreneurs are very eternal optimistic people, and that is fine. That is why they are entrepreneurs. But you can't be stupid about it. You need to see the other side of the picture as well. And I think mentors' role is to do that. That is one. 2, I think, at least in India, a lot of entrepreneurs are very young, and they don't know leadership, they don't know excellence, they don't know innovation, they don't know how to manage large teams. Mentors can help with all of these, right? And the third thing that mentors can help them is, you are creating a global company, but you have never traveled outside India. You don't know how product is used or received in US. Of course, from internet, but you don't have the feel for it. Now, people like us who have worked across the world can bring that aspect to them. I'll give you a specific example. Miko is a learning robot. It's a robot of this size that is 2 to 6-7-year-old kids talk to. They learn, they dance, it plays music, and so on. Now, Sneh and Miko was going to launch this product in US. And they came to me and they said that this is our plan. I said, your product is not ready for the US market. It is only ready for Indian market. And so they had planned all the launch. They stopped all that. They pulled back, went through 4 or 5 steps that I said, localized the product for the US market, and then launched the product in the US. And amazing success. Had they followed the first path, they would have disappointed the customers in US. And once you disappoint customers, it's very hard to win them back. So here is an example of mentoring for startups and some other questions that you asked.
Yes, there's this saying that it takes a long time to build reputation and just a second to lose it. Which is also true for companies, because personally, I would not like to go back to a brand that has not delivered as per my expectations the first time around. Very few consumers give second chances. So with that, let's bring Vasudha back into the conversation for the final set of questions.
Right, with just the last few minutes remaining of our conversation here, you've gone through this incredible journey of writing this book. How has this journey been for you, and what have you learned from it?
Yeah, it has been a phenomenal journey. I'll tell you that many things I have been practicing, so I know, and I practice it in certain way. It's like doctor practicing, without thinking about what to do. But when you start writing, you have to think about it and convert that into words, and also make it not only inspiring, but also practical for someone else to actually act on it. So one of the biggest challenge for me was one or 2-3 challenges, I'll tell you. One was that write a book that is relevant for a 15-year-old as well as 65-year-old. That is not easy, right? Number 2, it should be inspirational, but then it should be practical, that at the end of reading the book, any person can come out with 2 or 3 action items and then takes the next step. And then they read the book again, and then they take 2-3 actions again, and so on. So that was also part of it. So thinking about it in those terms, I was a practitioner of my theory, but converting it into a book for someone else to understand, get inspired, and act was a big revelation for myself, and a lot of introspection, a lot of hard work. And I do not know about other people, but I must have, I don't know, 200 times I must have read the book before I talked to Penguin.
Yeah, I mean, you're rewriting the book that you wish you had at certain times in your life. They could have looked at.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one instance, if you have a minute, I want to talk about it, because this combines the power of goals, power of passion that Urvi talked about, and one chapter that we didn't talk about, which was thinking out of the box, or innovation. Innovation is very important for every one of us. Thinking out of the box, thinking different is very important skill set. It's not just for engineers or doctors who are inventing some medicine or products. Let me give you a real example, which is in the book also. At the age 30, and this will clarify your question on how to develop passion after you have set the goal. So at the age 30, I started my career at Hewlett-Packard. My PhD was done. And I gave myself a goal that at the age 40, I want to be financially independent. Now, isn't that exciting enough that you can create a passion for that? And I did, right? Now I created the goal. I'm very passionate because this will make a big difference to our life. How do I do this? I have no clue, but this is the power of goals. Once I've set the goal, I'm very passionate about it. Then I said, can I do a startup? No, I didn't have a green card, nor I had money. I was a single earner in the family, so I couldn't take a risk beyond a certain level. So I looked at all my constraints. And then I said, okay, here is something I can do. I can invent an instrument and I can license it to a company and earn royalty on it and become financially independent. What do I need for that? Nothing other than my own hard work and thinking process and thinking out of the box. I was so passionate about it, Vasudha, that once the idea comes, I wouldn't go to sleep. I'm thinking all the time. And at night, I'll get ideas. Even when I sleep, I'll get up, oh, this idea is there. And then I will not go back to sleep because of the fear of forgetting that idea if I go back to sleep. So my wife said, look, keep a pencil and a paper, write that idea and go back to sleep so that you can work the next day. And again, this is the amount of passion you need for making sure both sides of your brain start working and aham brahmasmi happen, or God helps you with things. Within a year, I had invented an instrument, and that instrument was licensed to a Boston company called Cambridge AccuSense, and I was on way to become financially independent at the age 40. This is power of goal, power of passion, and power of thinking out of the box.
Thank you so much for sharing that personal anecdote. And I'm sorry for missing that question. Of course, that was a very important chapter. Every chapter actually in this book is incredibly important. I will come down to my last question, but if there are any more comments you would like to make, please feel free to make them. But this is something I'd like to ask all the authors that we kind of speak to, which is, what is your favorite book? And or what are you currently reading?
So this is, I'm so glad you asked this question, right? So I'm asked, I speak all over the world, right? Many Indian, many US and other universities. And my general topics are either leadership but I always bring mentorship and balanced life part in my talks. One question asked to me gazillion times is, can you recommend one self-help book that I can read? And I have not been able to answer that question. And that my book is an answer to that question. That is why I put both sides of it, define who you aspire to be, and then become that person. It actually helps you on both sides of the equation. So first answer, a little bit digressed, but I wanted to cover that. Thanks for asking. Now, from your perspective, which is my favorite book? If I have to pick one, I will say Autobiography of a Yogi. But it's very unfair to ask one favorite book. You know, I have so many. You can see right behind me. I'm an avid reader and I enjoy all kinds of books, not just spirituality. So leadership books are my favorite. Innovation books are my favorite. And actually in the chapter where I talk about the 4 gods that you need, the 4th God is a book or an audio or a TED talk and so on. There I have described my journey through books, how I have learned from books throughout this process. When I needed innovation, I read innovation books. When I needed venture capital, I read venture capital books. And at 65, you may find it exciting. And I decided to become venture capital. Why? Because I set the goal that I want to create 3 to 5 unicorns. Now, how can I create unicorns without joining? So see, goal decides the path. Now, I suddenly became VC. Now, I mean, I had done the startup before, but I was not a VC before. All I did, I went to Amazon and I found 10 top selling books in venture capital. How long does it take to do today? 5 minutes. I ordered all 10 books. I read all 10 books. And guess what? Many VCs who have been practicing venture capital for years haven't read those 10 books. How much wisdom you can gain from books. So it's hard to answer, but one book, if I have to say, it will be that one. Another book I recommend to people, especially senior people, is $1 Trillion Coach. That is a very good book. And it basically talks about coaching. They call it coaching instead of mentoring, but to the top Silicon Valley people like Steve Jobs and Google founders and Yahoo founders and so on. And it talks about mentoring and coaching to them. If they can use help from a mentor and coach, how about a common person? If every top athlete in the world can use a coach, how can we not use a coach? That's a very important point.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's just, this is a question that comes out of our curiosity, because as readers, we always want to know, what are our writers reading about? We've had people here say that they don't like to read because that's something they like to write, and they read for work, but when it comes to entertainment, they like watching movies and whatnot. So it's always interesting to hear kind of like the diverse amount of answers we get from this. But thank you so much for joining us today. This was Dr. Vivek Mansingh. He wrote Achieving Meaningful Success. And you can find this. This has just come out at the end of February, and it's available everywhere on all bookshops. And if you're still staying at home, then you can always order it online. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Vasudha. Thank you, Urvi. I enjoyed the discussion. And make sure both of you read the book as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. I personally enjoy reading a lot. So yes, it is going to be something I'm looking forward to now, especially after the conversation.
Please read, enjoy, and then after reading, if you have questions, go to my website and ask.